So just to give a little background, we're in Columbia, South Carolina. And so if you want to connect with us, you can go to our website, southernhousesnow.com, or find us on Facebook. But Christy and I come from not just a real estate investing background, but also trainers and teachers. Christy's a coach for Fortune Builders. She's been one of their top coaches for a real long time. And I used to teach 3-day classes with them as well. And anytime that one of us gets in front of a group of people, we always want to be 110% transparent and really talk about risk, right? So when we talk about lending money and raising capital and borrowing other people's retirements, we want to take that seriously. So instead of just saying, hey, everything's great, everything's awesome, one of our goals this evening is to share with you, hey, what could go wrong? How do we get ahead of it? And so what we do is we want to talk about risk. So anytime that we share a number with someone about like a deal that we've made, a profit, or more importantly, a profit that one of our lenders could have made, just understand that was that situation, right? There's a lot of things that go into a person's success. And one thing I'll tell you too, we are really good at surrounding ourselves with the right people. And what I'll tell you is this, you might be saying, hey, Noah, like get to the nuts and the bolts of how to do private money lending. And this is what I'll tell you. This is the nuts and bolts right here. So like someone that you're going to want on your team, and I would write this down like right away, like this week, if you're looking to build your credibility, is a real estate attorney that's credible in your community. Someone who can draw up these documents for you, someone who can conduct your closings for you. So even if you're brand new to real estate, you're going to surround yourself with the right people. Like I'm not the smartest person at all, like barely graduated college, like barely made it through. But what I am really good at—
He's lying, guys.
I'm not.
He's smart. He married me. No, I'm kidding.
I surrounded myself with the right people. And that's right. That's what you got to do, right? You got to surround yourself with the right people. So to help your credibility, and this goes into everything, right? So if you're brand new, it's okay because your real estate attorney might have 25 years in the business. So like we use Blair Cato. We use Gary Pickering. Blair Cato is one of our attorneys, and he literally wrote the contract for the state of South Carolina that all the real estate agents use. So if you wanted to instantly bump up your credibility, say, hey, look, I might be brand new, but the attorney that I work with, he actually wrote the contract for state of South Carolina. He's been doing it 30 years, right? And we're going to talk about how you build relationships with your contractors and do all of that with all the different types of real estate professionals, right?
And relationship building is so strong, not just from a lead standpoint of finding deals, but for finding money. But it's not just finding the money, because we all know people that have money. It's why would they lend to us? But are they going to feel secure? And do they know that their money is secure? That is the biggest thing, right? Like people love us. They love our deals. They love us on Instagram, all of that. But what makes us different from anyone out there? And why is their money going to be secure in this deal? So educating is a big piece.
Right. And I would say this, there's going to be people that watch this training and they're going to say, gosh, you know what? I got into real estate because I wanted to make money flipping houses or buy a rental property. But maybe after seeing this, they might say, hey, you know what? If I can make 10 or 12% rate of return on my money, why don't I just become a private money lender? I don't have to deal with any of the headache of owning the real estate, right? But so this training is just as important for the person that's thinking about lending, because I'll tell you that just because someone's online talking about they've done 100 deals and their team's on track to do all this, in my mind, when I see someone that's like, I'm amazing, I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, they are probably over leveraged. Like, do they have enough systems in place to take on all that? So there's a lot of things you're going to learn here of how to keep your money safe, whether you're the seller or the borrower, which is good. So we're going to start this off with an exercise, and it's real simple. It's just to get us starting to think about money. So picture and imagine that you have 2 deals, and these are small numbers. And I start with small numbers to help make the money seem more attainable and that you can grab onto it, right? So let's pretend you have a house that's worth 30,000, or you can purchase it for 30,000, and then maybe you got another one for 100, right? And I would start thinking of all the different ways where you could fund 2 deals like that, right? Where could you pull 100 grand? Is it a retirement account? Is it a home equity line of credit? Is it cash? Is it
CD?
A CD that is not making much money for you? Hard money lender? Could you go to a hard money lender? Could you go to a private money lender? Seller financing, right?
Lease option, right? Any strategy, what is it?
So start thinking, gosh, what could I do right now, right? And then the second step of this exercise, make a list. I'd spend some time after the call, make a list. The second step of the exercise is, what could other people do? Because it's not just about what we can do. It's what could someone else use? What could someone else get access to or leverage, right? Because this list right here is just some of the ways where people could get access to funding. And lots of times we think about us in this scenario, like I could go to a private money lender. I could do a seller finance deal. Like I have money sitting in savings. Maybe I should use that money, use my cash to fund a real estate flip.
Maybe I own my home free and clear, and I've never thought about getting a home equity line of credit that I even have available, or maybe there's someone else that has that available that doesn't know about that.
Right. Or, we talk about life insurance policies. Christy and I are real big on funding life insurance policies. And if we ever need the cash, we just pull it out from our policy on a loan from ourselves and do a deal or whatever we need it for. Right. And the big one right now, guys, is there's what is it? 70 million baby boomers, 10,000 people a day are retiring, maybe even higher numbers now since COVID. Like people are like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to retire. And they have retirement accounts, 401ks, and they're trying to figure out, what do I do with it?
Also, guys, think about people that lost their job or left their job, started a new job, and maybe didn't roll their 401k over from an old job, and they just let their 401k sit there.
Yeah.
We literally have such a cool connection of people. We had somebody on that talked about retirement accounts, and she gave, I forget the statistical number of people that have 401ks they forgot about from other jobs that are just sitting there.
Yeah, it was crazy. And some of them are like, lots of times it might just be like 30, 40 grand. But what we found is that sometimes if we have one lender that says, hey, look, I've got 100, I can cover like the purchase price. You can bring in a second person, give them a second position, and they could use that 40K that's just sitting in a 401k, orphan 401k doing nothing, right? So here's another person to add to your team, right? We talked about adding a real estate attorney. I would also add some sort of a financial planner or financial advisor that works with people with self-directed retirement accounts. So if you ever meet someone or family member or friend or, someone within your circle, and they say, you know what, I've got an old 401k. I don't know what to do with it. Should I go buy Bitcoin or whatever? Say, you know what, you should talk to this financial planner. Maybe you could get set up with a self-directed account, and I can pay you anywhere from 8 to 12% rate of return on your money, investing and funding our flips, right? So the money is out there. The money is out there. They're printing more money than they ever have before. It's just a matter of like figuring out the education on how to get that. Now, the two most common ways that people are funding, especially real estate flips, are the ones that are in bold there, right? Private money lenders and hard money lenders. But there's a difference, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that difference is. Because if you Google private money lenders, what's going to happen is you're going to get a million results that pop up, and they're going to say private money. But if you click on it, it's really what like Christy and I would consider like institutional private money, really like hard money. So like investors put money in a fund, and then that fund figures out where they're gonna invest that fund's money, right? So it's different. What we're teaching and learning about here tonight is how to lend to one another, right? How we could do deals with individuals, people that we know.
So like a family member, a friend, someone that you have a built relationship with of some sort.
Right, exactly. And what you'll find is with the hard money lenders is extra fees. They have a stricter criteria. They're going to want to see a credit score. Christy was saying this the other day. She's like, what were you saying? I've never met a hard money lender that hasn't ran my credit.
And it drives me insane. Right? Yeah. And I can even say, listen, guys, I just pulled my credit. Can I give you a copy of that? No. And I'm like one of those, yes, you have to leverage your credit if it's good and do it, but I hate pulling it multiple times just for a hit for no reason. And I was teaching something on creative financing, and it was funny. I was like, all the private money we borrowed, I've never, ever, ever, and creatively financed deals had one person ever ask me about my credit, which was not crazy, but it was crazy in the sense that we built such a good system and credibility to approach people that they put faith in what we do because we're putting faith in the deal that we show them and how it's secured. So the credit to them doesn't even matter. And to be quite frank with you, most business owners and people that are in real estate don't always have the best credit because we're taught to leverage. So if it was based solely on credit, hey, guess what? Go to the bank, right? So private money is just one of those key things you want in your business. And And Noah touched on something earlier about the baby boomers and the large population. That's my parents. And they're the prime example, houses paid for free and clear, money in the freezer in the basement, literally old school, money in the CD over here, tucked away. And I was laughing because I was standing in CVS, and I like took a quick picture in line. I said, "Hey, Noah, I'll be home in 20 minutes." And literally in front of me, guys, I was like, I should be networking this line at CVS. The average age of everyone was probably 70 or above, and there were 8 people in front of me. I'm like, these are all lenders. These are people we need to just have conversations and build a relationship with,
Yeah.
So they're in your everyday life.
I see your question, David. In Missouri, we can get private lending from 10 family members and friends, and 1 million a year. Is it like that in South Carolina? Not to my knowledge. It's kind of the Wild West. And so here's what I would say. I would also check your local state laws for like interest rates and things like that, like usury laws, guys. So in South Carolina, there is no limit to my knowledge. But for instance, in like California, a person cannot charge more than 10%. Now, here's what typically happens in states, and people have no idea this is happening. It doesn't so much affect the borrower, but it could really affect the lender. So if someone was lending, and let's say they were lending at 12%, which is really common, 12%, and they were lending
12% interest annually, and we'll talk about that.
They were lending at a rate of like 12%. And that might be fine with the borrower, and there's no issue, right? There's no issue. But let's say something happens and that borrower goes into foreclosure or can't make their payments, they get behind, and the lender decides, hey, I want to get my house back, or I want to take the house because that was the collateral. The borrower in this messed up world could go back and say, hey, you know what? You charged me 12%. And if that went to court, someone could look at that, a judge could look at that and say, hey, look, that was predatory lending. You were lending at 12% when our limit's 10%. That's your responsibility. So just something to keep in mind. Check out what you can lend in your state and make sure that you abide by those guidelines, because everything's fine until it's not fine, right? Everything's fine until it's not.
And again, not to scare anyone, right? But that's also with a good attorney and people that you have, it's always good to run things by, because they know a lot of these laws and see a lot of this as well.
But you don't want to be in your state and be like, oh, we lend anywhere from 8 to 12. But if you can't go over 10, now you kind of like burned your credibility.
And honestly, you don't want to tell people, yes, we lend 12 out the gate. You want to be like, we lend 6%. And then if they say, I'd really like 8, you say, great, we can do that. You don't want to promise the world. So
yeah, Christy's the great negotiator. All right, moving on. Here we go. Oh, there we go. Why we love private money lending. So, I'm not going to hate on hard money so much as I am going to talk about how much we love private money. So with private money lending, it's speed, right? We can compete with cash offers because once we have the relationship set up, we pick up the phone, and it's as simple as saying, hey, look, here's the numbers, and being able to have them wire the funds. Once all the paperwork's drawn up, right? But we can secure it quickly, right? Negotiating rates and terms. So what's cool is we can actually talk to the seller or the lender and say, hey, look, on this deal here, we got to go a little bit less. On this one, we're going to make a lot of money, so we can come up a little bit, right? So we can work with the rates and the terms, unlike walking into like a Wells Fargo and saying, hey, look, we're going to do 8% and here's the terms. They're going to be like, what? Take a hike, right? So we kind of set that. So you talk about the next couple of ones here.
Yeah. And it's been cool with setting the terms, because we have a long-term lender for probably, it's probably been 9 years now. And there's some deals we can pay her more on, which I do, because anytime I need the money, she'll roll it right back into a deal. And I want to quite honestly make her money, right? She's building her retirement. She works in education. So that's been a cool way to help do that. But purchase price and renovation costs. So a lot of times when you're working with a hard money lender, they're only going to fund so much percentage of your deal, and they may or may not. Most of them will give like 70 to 75% purchase of your purchase price. And then they'll give typically 100% of your renovation costs. But what hard money lenders don't tell you is they don't necessarily give you all that renovation cost up front. They work in draws. So you might have to have a certain amount of money to start your rehab, and then they'll reimburse you once you put a little money in. So this can be tricky, because you go into a deal going, gosh, I'm going to need secondary gap funding from private money lender. Guys, what if you just had a full private money lender that would give you the entire 100% purchase price and renovation costs? It's a lot less headache. And again, like Noah said, speed of implementation, it's there. You don't have the lender coming back saying like, well, we pulled comps and it looks a little rural, we're only going to give you 60%, right? Your private money lender knows that you have good deals that you present to them. Again, the no credit check is big. That's awesome. Loans don't show up in your credit report. This is big. So like, as you're growing your business, I get this a lot. Like, how do we leverage our credit? How do we work with local banks? How does all this look on paper? Can we be an employee of our company? There's all types of things you can do within your business. So you can obtain bank financing too. But if you are rehabbing 10 homes at once, you don't want all of that coming up on your credit, right? So that's the benefit of using the private money lender. Even though their money is secured by the property, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you can have multiple loans simultaneously. Literally, guys, I told Noah, we are not going to rehab a house for 3 months. We're just going to take a little bit of a break. And then what ended up happening, guess what? I ended up actually coming in and saying, okay, instead of taking a break, what we're going to do now is we have 5 deals come across our plate. And I'm like, oh, great. We've got 5 rehabs now. Maybe I'll wholesale. No, let's just rehab them. So we literally within like a 5-day span had 5 deals. And literally we made 5 calls, 5 emails, and we had all the money lined up that quickly. And everything was happening at once, which was cool.
So basically we're millions of dollars in debt right now. Right. No, I'm just kidding.
But literally, it was like, whoa, yeah.
and the biggest one is the last one, which is the opportunity to help others. So here's the superpower, guys. Here's the superpower. It's not what you think, right? In real estate, I think Christy and I, we've developed this superpower, and it's like Superman can fly. He's faster than a speeding bullet. But for real estate investors, we have a superpower that's just as valuable as flying is to Superman. And it's not being able to raise the capital. It's actually being able to help people make great rates of return on their money, right? So here's the thing. At no point in time are we ever going to be on our hands and knees and saying, hey, I need a loan. This is a great opportunity for both of us. Please, 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 please. It's all about saying, hey, look, I'm giving you the opportunity to make a great rate of return on your money, and it's going to be secured by a hard asset. And this is something that people are just not going to be able to get anywhere else. And so we're really helping people, right? Believe that. And it's a win-win scenario, because I'll show you this chart here. I think I got it. Yeah, there we go. So this is a graph. And to help a person raise money, I would show people numbers, right? Show them the problem that they're in right now. And then show them what a person, if they were making a double-digit rate of return, having that money compounded, what do those numbers look like? And then show them where they might be at 20 years down the road. And so if someone's making 1% on their money, they got it in the savings account or CD, or the money's in the freezer, like Christy's dad or whatever, right? It's losing value. You're bleeding your bank account. You're killing your money, right? So they call it currency because it's like the ocean. You put it goes out, it comes back, it goes out, it comes back. But if money stays stagnant, then it just like, pond water, what happens to pond water? If it just sits, right, it gets poisonous. It kills the fish and everything that's in it, right? Can't drink it anymore, right? Because there's no current. So I would show someone these numbers and say, hey, look, Mr. and Mrs. Private Money Lender, if your money's in a savings account or a CD right now, did you know that over the course of 20 years, it's going to grow to next to nothing? However, if someone were to compound their money at a rate of 12% annually, that $100,000 over a 20-year period might grow to $964,000, almost $1 million, right? And there's something called the rule of 72. And I highlighted there, you can see at 6%, the 201,000, 12%, the 197. The rule of 72 is really powerful. It's a quick way to get people thinking about how they should be doing better. And it says, hey, look, if you take the interest rate that you're the number 72 and divide it by the interest rate that you're making on your money right now, that's how long it's going to take for your money to double. So if someone's making a 12% rate of return, that means that in 6 years, year 6, your money's going to double. If they're making a 6% rate of return, it's 12 years, right? So on and so forth. So
And this is
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, when you look at this, it's like anybody at any age can start and they can really like capitalize on this, whether they're 20 years old, 30, 40, 50, 60. You look at this amount of money in 20 years and it's like, why would someone not put their money with you is the question. And I don't know if we're going to get into this in here, but I tell people the biggest part too of this, and Noah says building relationships and win-wins, but I think it's being super comfortable just talking to people and knowing that you are talking to a friend and that you are helping them. I think that's the biggest takeaway about money. When you're comfortable with it, people are comfortable talking to you about it. And we've all been raised not to talk about money. It's rude to ask someone how much money they make, right? I laugh at Noah's sister when she was like 14 or 15, she came to visit us in South Carolina, and I took her around to all of our rental properties, and she would ask every property, how much did you pay for this? How much money do you make? How much money are you going to make on this rental? And I just laughed because I was thinking like, I love Maddie because she's 14 and she just asks. I wish we could all channel that.
Right.
So like channel your inner Maddie and just ask.
Yeah. Channel your inner teenager. Right?
Yeah.
All right. So, I got a question here. So here's some of the terms. These are common terms. Let's see the question here. Chat. What we got? Who we got? Oh, powerful graph. Yeah. Amen. That is a powerful.
It is.
graph.
I mean, when I look at it, I know that, but when you see it visually in front of you to somebody going like, hey, I've worked my whole life and this is all I've made. How am I going to make more money to actually retire and get ahead? It's like, there you go. It's right in your face.
Yeah. So now what's cool is you can set up your terms of your loans however you and your lender agree. Most people, if they've never done this before, they don't know what's common, right? On both ends, whether you're the borrower or the lender, right? So how we set ours up, it's simple interest, annualized, and meaning if we hold on to an investor or a lender's money for an entire year, then they're going to earn the entire interest rate that we agreed upon. So if we're paying someone a 12% rate of return on their money, I know you hate when I use that example because it's the higher end of that.
But like, what are you doing?
If we're paying someone a 12% rate of return on their money and we have their funds for 6 months, that means they're going to earn a 6% rate of return in that 6-month time frame. If we have it for the whole year, then they're going to earn the 12, right? Now, if there's shorter turnaround times, like let's say we're doing a wholesale deal and we're borrowing the money, but we're only going to need it for 2 weeks or 30 days. We can use private money lenders, purchase the property, but now that person's not going to make a lot of money because it's such a short turnaround time, right? If we're doing annualized interest. So what we can do in the lending world, there's something called points. So 1 point is 1% of the loan, and it's like a fee that we would give to the lender. So on shorter turnaround times, it's pretty common for lenders to want points, and it's pretty common for borrowers to offer points to make it attractive. Okay. I remember the first time that we did a deal and we were one of our quick turnarounds. We were so excited using private money, and we went to the lender and we're like, oh my gosh, this is a cakewalk. It's going to take 2 months and we're going to sell this thing so fast. And the guy was like, well, hold on a minute. Like, I don't want you to sell it fast. And what's interesting, I'm thinking, well, why wouldn't you? I'm going to give you back your money. But he's thinking, I don't want my money back. I want you to keep it so I can make my full 12%. And if you ever find yourself in a situation like that, it's okay. Just throw in a couple points to make it attractive for them. Because if you do more and more deals, the velocity of money, putting it out, putting it back, putting it out, putting it back, then that 12% could be much more if we're throwing in points on top of it.
And really the truth is, guys, when you look at it, we think like, oh, okay, they're only taking out for a month. It's not that much money, but where did they have their money? Most people have, 40, 50 grand sitting in a savings account, I find, not doing anything. So it's like that's more money than what they're making just sitting there, because again, they're losing money by not doing anything with it. So yeah. I think it depends on the person. If you're getting an investor that's lending and they invest a lot and they do, okay, they might think differently. But if it's just your average person, which is a lot of people that just have, hard-earned money, they've just let sit because they're afraid to put it in the stock market and they don't have a 401k, that money is just not doing anything for them. It's typically in a CD, something really low bearing.
And you can structure how, like typically what Chris and I will try to do, so we have more cash flow with us throughout the course of the projects. We don't have to worry about thinking about it, is we'll pay the interest on the back end. So when we go to sell a house, we bought it, we renovated it, listed it, we're selling it, we'll add up all the accumulated interest, and then that lender will receive their principal back plus all of their interest when we sell the property. Now, if you're talking with a lender, it's important to find out what that lender's goals are. So that lender might say, hey, this might be a great way for me to supplement my retirement. Or maybe you have a lender that, has some money they want to put to work, and the extra cash flow every month would just help them out. So we could make a monthly payment to that person to make their interest payment monthly if you wanted to do it that way, or you could put it off until the end. Now, here's something I learned this week from one of my lenders. And I was like, gosh, this is so great. I can't wait to tell someone that. So I'm sharing it with you first. There was I had a lender, and typically what he likes monthly payments, not because he wants the monthly cash flow, but for the simple fact that if for some reason, like for instance, let's say he lent to someone else and he agreed to pay or to receive his interest once the property sold. Let's say he found out that person was in some sort of like financial hardship, like something happened, the project wasn't going the way they wanted it to, or maybe they had like a few other projects that were affecting this one. Let's just say something happened and it was bad, and he caught wind of it like month 3 or 4. Technically, he has no recourse. There's nothing that he can do to try to immediately get back his money or acquire the asset, because they didn't break any terms of the loan, right? So everything is going as planned according to the promissory note. But he knows that the person is going through some sort of financial hardship suddenly, and now he's like, oh my gosh, I got to wait 12 months. What's going to happen by that point in time? However, because if that person, if the borrower had made payments to them, so if we're making payments to a borrower, and let's say we miss a payment because we're going through something, now he can start the process because we broke the terms of the promissory note. So he likes to have, what we did with this person, I was like, oh, that's really interesting, because we've borrowed from him many times. But it was always like half. It was like, if we were doing a 12% term, like then we would pay him 6% monthly, and then and then he get the rest at the end. But this time we're doing a 3% interest. So whatever that would be, it's like, for that reason. Anyways.
And I wanted to actually, that brings up a really good point, because some of our lenders are not in our areas. And so it's not like, and we don't even want our lenders to have to come see our property every other day, right? Like that's not the best use of their time. So Noah had a great idea, and I was like, everyone should use this. When we started Rehab, we actually started a closed Facebook group, and we upload all the pictures of the property before and the progress during the rehab. And we add our private money lender into that, as well as our agent, so they can track, hey, when's this property getting on the market? But it also gives that lender security of seeing, hey, like the project is moving along. What they're saying is true. So they feel secure, but we also don't have to pick up the phone every week and call them and tell them, because guys, yes, they trust us, but like, can you imagine giving your money to someone and you don't hear from them, even if they're selling the property in 4 to 6 months? There is some type of concern. It's like, I just gave these people 250 grand and now I haven't heard from them. Is everything okay? I can't even drive to the property.
It's like, how, a picture would be nice. You know what I mean? Like,
so that Facebook group is cool, because I upload like weekly everything that's going on. Like we started a project a week ago. It was completely demoed, all the walls torn out, a bathroom plumbed in, and the electrical starting tomorrow. So we have progress pictures of all of that. So they're able to be interactive in that. And I thought of something else too, when we're talking about working with the lender, because here's the thing, we get really excited about talking to people about money, and we like, I literally now, and this is no joke, I could just talk to people. I feel like we have more money than we know what to do with now. Like, it's like, oh yeah, maybe we need to find more properties, because people see what we're doing and they're like, we really want to lend to you, because we built that credibility. What's important to let your lenders know is, listen, they think when you say, hey, I'm ready to use your money, that means tomorrow. And sometimes that's not the case, guys, because the reality is you might not find a deal through your marketing and you might not be able to close on it for 30 days. So when that lender's ready to go, they assume you haven't called them in a week or two. They're like, well, what are Christy and Noah doing? I thought they were ready to use my money. It starts to make them feel a little like questionable about, are we really doing the business? So I tell people, listen, we are marketing constantly and consistently. So deals come across our plate. We do have other lenders. We're looking for the best terms. Whoever gives the best terms, that's going to be our first lender. But know that if we're not contacting you tomorrow, that just means we don't have a deal at the moment, but doesn't mean we can't have one in 3 weeks. So keep your money available. And when we have something, we'll reach out to you and send you the deal. So just communicate.
Yeah. I put it on your bi-weekly calendar of just touching base with people, and seeing how they're doing. and let them know what's going on. And it's, and if someone says, yeah, I think I'm interested, I would definitely like be in touch with them on a weekly basis until you do find a deal so that they don't go somewhere else. Right. So let's talk about some big no-nos. So just some things to be careful of. We never really advertise, right? We never advertise. You're not going to do a Facebook post or a Craigslist ad that says, I have this investment opportunity. Like it's very difficult because it is looked at where a person can make a great rate of return, but try to eliminate the vocabulary investment or the word investment from your vocabulary and the word guarantee from your vocabulary.
And remember, these private money lenders, you're supposed to have, now it doesn't mean it's got to be your Uncle Susie or your Aunt Susie and your Uncle Harry that you've known for 50 years. It could be like an acquaintance, a relationship built with them. Like you have to know them. You can't just target random people to lend you money. So there has to be some built relationship. Now, what is that? Maybe I'm in carpool line and I talk to my son's teacher every day, right? Like she could be a lender because I do know her, and that's important.
A pre-existing relationship. And I think that's why it's important to get out there and network and get on these webinars. And it doesn't have, go have a cup of coffee, go attend a live networking event once things open up to meet people, which we'll talk
now
about.
That being said, Noah says, hey, don't post on Facebook these things. But what Noah did a very good job of is when we complete a deal on our personal Facebook, because these are all people that we know, he personally says, hey, listen, this is a deal we just completed from start to finish. And this is what we did pay one of our lenders, which is the truth. So what's funny is I laugh because, my family's very old school in every angle. And my one aunt, my Aunt Ann, she worked for IBM. I mean, she's a smart lady and she's got a lot of money. She never had kids, so she has a lot of money, right? And we laugh about it because I know she owned real estate, but I didn't even honestly know this. Her and her husband have been married 65 years now. And she saw one of Noah's posts and she inboxed him and said, hey, why don't you talk to me a little bit about this lending? Like, what does that criteria look like? And I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. And then I was talking to her just casually and she said, yeah, I just sold the first townhouse her and my uncle ever bought. She's like, and I, made X amount of dollars. And I was like, right there's my private money lender. So it's interesting that these people are out there if you just bring it up. I wasn't even targeting and talking to her about it.
Yeah. So we just, share your journey, document your journey, right? Just like you say, hey guys, look, we just bought this house. We closed on it. This is the type of properties that we like to buy, right? You're hoping that someone sees that and says, hey, you know what? I know of a crappy house, or I know someone that's trying to sell their investment property. We do the same thing, but with lending, we don't say, hey, look, I'm looking for a lender, but I just did a deal and we paid someone this amount of money and I give them all the facts. And if they want to learn more, then we can sit down, have a cup of coffee, right? And it's important to know that we're not pooling funds. So this, syndication is everywhere nowadays. It seems like everyone's got a fund. This is not a fund.
So what does that mean? Explain what that is.
So pooling funds would be like, and sometimes, people say, hey, look, you've got money, you've got money, you've got money, you've got money. Let's all like go in on it together, but I don't want to make any of the decisions. Someone else can make the decisions for us. You could be violating some SEC rules. So you just got to be careful. What we do, that's called taking an equity position. Right.
And there's people that are licensed and able to do that.
Yeah. So you can do that, but if you get an attorney and syndication attorney, draw up the documents and file the right paperwork. What we're doing is very simple. And what we do is we provide a debt position, right? That's the biggest difference. Equity, you're pooling funds, syndication, you have no control really over the investment. What we're doing is we're doing a debt position where it's a loan. So there's documents that a lender will receive, and these are them right here, right? So this is much different than pooling money.
Yeah, write these down. These are really important because your lender's going to ask you, okay, that all sounds great, but how's my money secured?
Yeah, and sometimes people get caught up in the numbers, and unfortunately, they don't know to ask for these things.
Yes, guys, and I've coached people. I tell this from a point of lending and a point of borrowing. And it's really easy and sloppy to do because listen, my dad has lent us money. Noah's mother has lent us money. We use a lot of family for our deals as well. It's really easy to say, hey, dad, you could just wire the money to my account. Hey, mom, just wire it to us. No paper trail whatsoever, right? And they're your parents, right? So they trust you to some level. And they fully trust you. They know that you're going to give it back. But what if tomorrow Noah and I got on a plane and the plane crashed and all of my dad's money and all of his mom's money is tied up in a deal. And there's none of these documents have been filed. It was all like a handshake, yeah, I'll pay you back system. And now their money's tied up. What happens to that?
Yeah. Or, you know, let's say you're thinking about lending money and you lend to someone who is, you know, trying to be the next, you know, HGTV guru, and they've got 100 projects going on, and they're up to their neck in stuff, and they end up screwing up, right? They end up screwing up.
And it happens. And I have coached many people that say, well, they, you know, so and such is so nice, I'm going to let them borrow money. And I don't believe with bad intentions, a lot of people do it, but sometimes they get hosed by a contractor and they think,
Right.
oh gosh, the deal's going sideways. You know what? Maybe I'm going to use this money from this deal and I'm going to take it over to this deal to finish off the rehab, and it's going to sell quick. And then it doesn't for some reason. And then all of a sudden,
Yeah, it might not be malicious. It's just, you know,
and sometimes it could be malicious. So just file the paperwork. Good attorney, paperwork.
Get these documents. So here's what they are. Promissory note outlines the terms of the loan, right? Now, here's the thing. Don't get this offline. Go, if you're in Columbia, go have Gary Pickering draw it up, or a great real estate attorney, Renee Ballou, Belle Carrington. We also use her, right? So hook up with a good real estate attorney, because here's what's great. When you're talking to a lender, they're going to say, okay, well, where do you draw these documents, right? And then you're like, whoa, no, I don't do this. Like, our attorney does it, right? And so it's like a pressure valve release. It's like, oh, okay, the attorney does it, right? So in our state of South Carolina, we're going to use a mortgage. Okay. If you're watching this in different states, it might be a deed of trust. We're doing a deal in Virginia next week. It's a deed of trust. So you're going to get a promissory note, outlines the terms. The mortgage is what's the security. So if you're lending and all you have is a promissory note, then you ain't got, you know, pardon my French, but you don't got nothing.
That's like, hey, I promise I'm going to pay you back.
Pinky promise.
My kids do that all the time.
So it's don't stop there, right? Don't stop there. Get the mortgage or deed of trust, right? And then that's the lender's security, right? And we're going to talk about how important that is when you're pitching for the money too. And then we always list the lender as the lost payee on the insurance, just like a bank would want. And now we don't always offer this, but if someone wants it, because lots of times if someone says, hey, you know what, I'm interested, we draw up all the documents, they might take it to their attorney to have it reviewed, right? Just to make sure everything looks good. And their attorney might say, well, you know what, you should probably get a personal guarantee too, right? Because sometimes we buy houses in our LLCs and businesses. So I would always offer a personal guarantee if someone wanted it, right?
And here's the truth, like a personal guarantee, people say, well, what does that mean? Well, that means, hey, you're personally saying I will pay you back no matter what, right? Like, so could they come after you for that money? Yes. But guess what? I'm not going to borrow money from someone unless I'm going to get it back to them. So I'm not worried about doing a personal guarantee because I'm being honest and it is a good deal and we will get it back. Right. And putting on the insurance as a lost payee, why that's important, guys. What if the house burnt down? What if the house flooded, right? You want to make sure your lender gets their money paid back from that deal. If something like that were to happen, they're going to get the check for the insurance because they're the one that put up the money.
And here's what's great about this. If you're talking to someone about private money lending, you can, and if they own a house, you can say, hey, remember when you went and you bought your house and you filled out that stack of paperwork and you signed a promissory note, you signed a mortgage, right? Do you remember? And then you got like your bank on the insurance. Do you remember doing that? They're going to say, yeah, like it's the exact same thing. And now they're like, oh my gosh. And all you're doing is just now you're
comfort. Yeah. Comfort level, like terms and relatable. Exactly.
Because really they've done it before,
right?
They're just on the other end of it. Now, the key to this, right? The key to making all of this work, both for the lender and the borrower, is the collateral. So the house is the collateral, and we're never going to take on a loan that's like more than what the house is going to be worth once it's fixed up. In fact, it's the complete opposite. So if we borrow 100,000, or let's say we borrow 150,000, I know that every time Christy and I borrow 150,000, that it's going to be collateralized and secured by a house that's going to be worth way more than that, like 225 and up, right? And people don't get this anywhere else. So here's what I'd recommend that you do. Okay, this is our like our buying criteria. Like this is This is kind of like our business model.
And this is important if you're lending, like you want to know that your lenders have a system of how they're analyzing the numbers and the repairs and all of that. They're not just going, hey, I think it's going to be this much. What's their system, right? And you want to see that.
Yeah. So this is our business model. And here's my advice. Like if you're looking to get in real estate, raise capital, I would pick a neighborhood. I wouldn't pick like 10 neighborhoods or all of Columbia, South Carolina, or all of Blythewood or all of Charleston. I would pick 1 or 2 neighborhoods, start with one, and know that neighborhood like the back of your hand. Know what's going on at every single house. If it's a rental property, if the person owns it, just know it. If a house sells, if a house is pending, if a house just listed, own it, own that neighborhood, right? And then figure out your numbers. So, and you might start at the bottom. You might start with that after repair value number, knowing, hey, I know that a house in this neighborhood that I'm going to do my first flip at or focus on my business is going to sell the way that I'm going to fix it up with the granite countertops and new windows, roof, make everything nice for $225.
And what constitutes that 225 is what has sold in that neighborhood.
Yeah,
so when we talk about comparables or comps, that's something you need to learn how to pull. And if you don't know how, you need a good agent that can do that for you.
Yeah. So there's number 3, right? Got a closing attorney, financial planner. I would also add to that a really good real estate agent. If you need help with that, we can refer you to people here in our area, but you can have them pull the comp. So I know that it's going to be worth 225. Now I start figuring out, okay, I got to back into the deal. I know that in order to make my minimum profit, that I typically in that area, in that neighborhood, to make a house look like a $225,000 house, I'm going to put 50 grand into it, right? So you're figuring out what your repairs are going to be. And now so most likely, this is like the Mayo formula, right? You take your ARV times 70%. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, just shoot me a message after the video and I'll help you with that. But I know that what we do is we need to buy houses for 100 because we're going to put 50 into them. And then once we put $150,000 into that house, purchase and reno, it's going to be worth $225,000. So now this is kind of like where the elevator pitch starts when you're explaining this to a lender. So I would practice this, have it roll off the tip of your tongue like you're telling someone your address or your phone number. You say, Mr. and Mrs. Lender, see what we do is we buy houses for $100,000. We put $50,000 into them. A person's $150,000 loan is then secured by a $225,000 asset, right? And you can even add in there at the end, just like a bank, right? So we buy for 100, put 50 into them, and $150,000 loan secured by a $225,000 asset. That's going to start piquing people's interest.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
So just to give you an idea, right? So here's the sweet spot, right? Here's the sweet spot. So now it wasn't exactly 100, right? We're not always buying for 100, but just we're giving them a scenario of what's common, like, or if you're brand new, like what our goal is, right? So we bought this house for 95. Our renovation budget was 35. I think it actually ended up being closer to 50. Mm-hmm. We took out a $130,000 loan and we sold it for 207. So if I was explaining this deal to someone, I'd say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Lender, what we did is we paid 95 for it. We put 35 into it, and a person's $130,000 loan was secured by an asset that sold for $207,000. So let's say we don't make one payment to this person, or something happens, like we're in default for some reason. That person can then take the steps to get the keys to the home, or in other words, they could start the foreclosure process. So their $130,000 loan would essentially get them a $207,000 house, right? And then the lender in this situation, this took 153 days. We paid them a 12% rate of return, annualized interest. They earned $6,500. And so when we sold the property, they got all their money back plus $6,537.69, right? So now you might say, oh, that's a good price point. Like our price points are a little bit higher. Cool. Figure out your neighborhood. This is a smaller price point, right? This is a smaller price point. This is the northeast side of Columbia.
So that first deal was in Whitehall. If you're familiar, over on the 29212 zip code.
29212, and this one's 29223. So maybe a step down in some neighborhoods, right? But this is a place that we are focusing because we think there's going to be some good opportunity there.
Now, I want to tell you something cool about this deal. So this deal was actually the first deal Noah showed you was a deal from a referral. We actually flipped her best friend's house almost 5 years ago. And she knew when she saw her best friend's house 5 years ago that when she was ready to sell, she was a baby boomer. She was going to call us and sell to us. And it was the most amazing referral, most amazing couple ever, and like testimonial. She was awesome. And she actually moved out to Blythewood. They bought a house out there after.
Her reaction, we brought her back. is on our webpage, Southern Houses Now. You can check it out. It
was amazing. And it like made me cry. It was like, it was what we're all about. It was the win-win in the relationship. And actually we're getting ready to close on a property this month on the 25th in St. Matthews that she referred to us. It was a probate, 7 siblings whose parents passed away. So we're going to be flipping that one. So again, win-wins. But this one was interesting because it was on the MLS and it was there for any investor to buy. It was an older lady who had some dementia and health conditions, and the house was in pretty poor condition. And when I read the listing, my agent found it for me and it said, no hard money, no private money. It didn't say no investors. It just said no hard money, no private money, no inspections. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, I know exactly what happened. I was like, these amateur investors keep putting this under contract and they're trying to wholesale it and they don't have money lined up and they don't have buyers and they're probably trying to get hard money and they can't. So I literally came in and told my agent, I said, listen, I need you to tell this agent that I'll come in and inspect it. I need an inspection period, but I won't lock it up in contract, but I'm going to use private money and I'm serious about this, but here's who we are. Here's our website. Here's what we do. And we will get this deal closed. And I met the agent at closing and she said, I just want to thank you so much because my poor client, had to move. She was actually moving back to Louisiana with family. She said, if it wasn't for you, she wouldn't have been able to do this. And you made this so easy. She said, I'm going to keep you on my phone if I come across anything in the future. So it was such a cool win-win. But I'll let Noah kind of run through the numbers for you.
Yeah. Sometimes hard money lenders won't lend on small amounts. Right. So maybe that's what happened in that scenario.
Or maybe they didn't qualify because they pulled their credit and they said, or the person might not have had that private money gap funding for the deal, right? The hard money lender maybe was going to lend 75%, but they couldn't come up with the additional percentage to get it done.
Yeah. So this house here, this is the same lender. We had a much larger profit potential here. So we paid her 12, a little smaller profit margin here. So we paid her 10, right? So it's all good. Everyone's making money.
And she was happy with that. She was like, as soon as we give her money back, she was like, okay, when's the next deal? I'm like, next week. So get ready. Wire the money back,
And it was a few weeks later. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's someone we've been using for 8 years now. All right. So let's talk about this elevator pitch. And I think this is what's really fun. Once you start just practice. And then once you start meeting people more and really get an act for it, it becomes innate. Right. And Christy mentioned it earlier, which is just asking questions and really asking the question like, hey, what do you do for a living? So whether you're at a soccer game or you're at a networking event or just out and about or whatever, like if you have if you're having a good conversation with someone or a hello, how you doing? Nice day. Throw it out there. Hey, so, what do you do for a living? Right. And in your mind, what's going to happen is you're going to think, okay, could this person be a private money lender today? Right? If I had a deal, or is this someone that maybe down the road could be a private money lender in a few years or what have you, right? So we always leave with a good impression, leave them intrigued about the idea, the concept, right? But Christy's the best at this. She's a pro at building rapport and asking people what they do for a living.
And I just love people. Actually, I should say we should call this our Lawson technique. And I'll tell you why this should be called our Lawson technique, because there's a little boy in the playground that asks questions about everything. And I'm telling you guys, it makes me laugh every time. Like, I love this kid. I mean, it's a question after a question. And they're pretty logical questions. And it's so funny because he's got his system. And I come in the house and he's probably like 12 years old. And I'm like, Noah, I don't know what this kid's going to do, but it's going to be big. He has questions and he's got a memory like nobody's business. So everywhere I go, I ask, what do you do? Right. And what's the first thing people always talk about? Like, and they want to tell you about their job. They want to tell you about their family, especially now with COVID, because everybody's been trapped up. People are so happy to talk to anyone. Yeah. It's really easy to build rapport. And then, people ask, what do we do? And they get super excited when we say, oh, you know what we do? And I don't say, oh, we flip houses, but people know that, but I'm like, yeah, so we buy houses, like the shows on TV, HGTV, we make them really amazing. And they're like, oh my God, I love HGTV. And they start talking about every show. And it's so cool because it's literally, if I asked 10 people, 10 people would tell me they love real estate and they've always wanted to flip a house. And I'm like, well, how would you like to be part of our house flipping, but not swing a hammer? And it's like, oh my gosh, that would be so cool. Well, great. Here's opportunities we have. And I make it so easy that it's like, why wouldn't I do that? Right. And just open the door because people will start asking questions.
Yeah, and the idea is not to, have anybody sign on the dotted line, right? Especially if you don't know them, like build a relationship with this person first, right? So the idea is just set up a time to have a cup of coffee or to talk more about it. Cause it might be, a couple months down the road or whatever, but I'll give you an idea of how this might like transition, right? So you ask, hey, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a nurse. Oh my gosh. Wow. That's awesome. And, you can ask more questions. Like if you're genuinely interested, like I always dig deeper and find out how they like it, what their goals are, how much longer they think they're going to be doing it. Right. And then just be quiet. Because what's going to happen is they'll naturally return the question. They'll boomerang it, because it's courtesy. It's well, what about you? What do you do? Right. And then just like Christy said, well, you ever seen the TV shows Flip This House? We do that. So what's cool is now we can kind of give them an idea. So if they're like, oh my gosh, so 9 times out of 10, people have always thought about doing real estate, but something's held them back. So I'll ask them, hey, like what's been holding you back from getting into it? If you've always wanted to, if you've always been curious, sounds like you've always wanted to do it. What's been holding you back?
I work too much. Oh, I don't know how to do it. I'm afraid I'll make a mistake, or one time I had this house and it was awful. We lived in a house and we fixed it up and I hated doing that. Great. Yeah. Like, good. We don't want you to do that.
Yeah. So usually it's like time or their career or not knowing how.
Or maybe they think they don't have the money, right? We don't have the money. I hear that all the time.
Maybe they're like, oh, I only have 100,000. I don't know what I could do with it or whatever. Right. So like whatever the reason is, it's like, oh my gosh, well, you don't need the time because what I do is I use private money lenders to fund our deals and we pay them a great rate of return. People love it. And as they start asking questions about it, if the more they ask, the more we can kind of give them a little sneak peek of what we do. So we might say, well, what we do is we buy houses for 100, right? Put 50 into them. Person's $150,000 loan secured by a $225,000 asset. Holy cow, that's awesome. I've never really heard of that before. Yeah, it's just like a bank. We give them a mortgage, a promissory note, list them on the insurance as a lost payee, pay them a great rate of return, anywhere from 8 to 10, maybe even 12 sometimes. And then I would just be quiet. I wouldn't even talk about it anymore. If it's someone that you're never going to see again, maybe they ask you for the card. If they don't ask you for information, cool. You just got a great opportunity to practice.
Right.
But if it's someone that you're going to maybe see it again at a practice or work or an event, I wouldn't even say anything after that.
Yeah. Remember, you're not selling people on this. You're not desperate. I think that's the key. Because there is so much money out there. It's it's kind of like a motivated and non-motivated seller. Like when I coach people, they'll say, well, this person said they wanted to sell and we'll go through the whole process. And I'm like, okay, but their price is not motivated. And I'm like, listen to me and like, let this sit in your brain. When you meet that motivated seller, I promise you're going to come back to me and go, oh my gosh, now I know exactly what you mean. And it always happens. Because they say, well, how do you get a property below, market value? You got to find a motivated seller. Well, I have all these people that want to sell, but they're not saying the right price that I need. They're not motivated enough. Same with the money. Like maybe they're interested, but they're really not that interested. It's kind of like dating, right? Okay.
Yeah.
They like you, but they just don't want to tell you they don't really like you. Same thing. It's the same way.
Unless someone's like raises their hand, like, please pick me. When it comes to buying houses, we usually don't buy it. Or waste our time with it. And we usually don't waste our time with people that are like, they aren't like, hey, I want to do this.
Oh my gosh, this is a true story. This just popped in my head. No joke. My college roommate's brother, I've known him like probably 23 years now. Very successful. Married once, just, bachelor for life, worth a lot of money. Great job, has been there since college, has all the money in the world. And what's hilarious, and now mind you, I saw him repeatedly before I got married and had kids because I was my college roommate and I, we're single and we were always going to visit each other and he lived close by. Hadn't seen him for years, came to her 40th birthday like 3 years ago and literally had probably not seen him in 8 years. He knows I'm in real estate. He's owned a ton of real estate. I mean, super smart guy. Starts talking about lending again. You know what I said to him? I'm not going to talk to you about this one more time unless you give me money that you want me to borrow. I'm sick of explaining it to you and talking about it because obviously if you really want to do it, you want to do it. He started laughing so hard because he just like wants to go back and forth. Well, what happens if this happens? I'm like, I don't want your money. I don't need your money. And we like literally laughed about it and he laughed really hard. And I guarantee the next time I see him in another 5 years, he'll bring up real estate again. I'm like, oh my gosh. So again, like he's not my prime candidate because there's other people just wanting to give us money that understand. So
I would snapshot this, take a picture of it, practice it. And, if you I've practiced this week.
And with each other, your spouse, your friend, whoever in the mirror. Yeah.
I would just practice it like crazy. And you go in phases, right? Like, don't just like try to like say it all at once to get it out. Like just say, hey, what do you do for a living? And then while they're talking, just be like, oh, could this person go back to that list, right? Of like, could they have a retirement account? Do they have a home? Maybe they have equity and start thinking to yourself, maybe they could be a lender, and then just stop there. And then once you're comfortable with that, then when they start asking you, hey, what do you do for a living? Instead of saying like what you do right now for your job, say, well, you ever seen the TV show Flip This House? That's one of the things I'm really interested in right now. Or if you're just starting out.
And you might have this coming up, I don't know, in a PowerPoint talking about the minimums and maximums of dollar amounts for lending. I get this a lot because we have a lot of people reach out that say and I had a good friend, actually, one of my really good friends, I'm flipping this house in Virginia that Noah mentioned we're about to do, and she's going to project manage it for us. She's an agent. She said, hey, I would be interested in lending. I saw Noah post one of your deals. What's the minimum you take? And I don't want to discourage people, right? And say, oh, you've only got 10,000. Sorry, that won't work, because 10,000 might work on a deal. And I said, well, typically our minimum is 50,000. And I just say that because that's generally the amount we end up spending on a rehab anyway. And then they'll say, well, gosh, I only have 25,000 right now. I said, well, 25,000 is a great start. Actually, you know what? I'm going to keep that in mind because we do come across smaller deals sometimes. Yeah. So, I think set a tone of what standardly you kind of want to be at, but let people know that like anything really is accepted with the right deal.
Yeah. And if you're just starting out, like even now, like never say no to money, because someone might say, well, I can do 40. And they're just testing you. They're not comfortable giving you 200 yet, right? So I would start, never say no to money. And some of our best lenders, our most loyal lenders now are the people. There's these two young girls that we used to know through Fortune Builders, through work. And they, lived at home. They saved money while they were like traveling around the country. And
when we say young, I'm talking like, 23, 24.
Yeah, like early 20s.
Yeah.
And this is 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And they've been working the whole time since then. And they've been lending the whole time since then with us. And now, they start out at 20 or 30,000 doing small, like, we would use that money for like the renovation. We give them a second position lien. Now they're doing first position liens, and they're lending, $100,000.
And they live out of the area. They live in California, both, so they don't have to live down the street. But it was cool because we might have discounted them and said, oh, they're young, they don't have any money. No, I mean, they do. So talk to everyone and kind of let them know.
Yeah. In South Carolina too, like houses are cheap. Like you can do a lot with less than 50 grand, right? I think the first house that I used private money on was like a $35,000 house I bought on auction.com. So, never say no to money. Finding lenders. So like new versus existing. So with new lenders, just know this, it's going to involve more educating, right? So you're gonna have to pull them along a little bit to educate them, but they're probably really excited because now they know a better way to make great rates of return that they didn't know before. With existing lenders, they might say, okay, I'm really interested, but you're going to pay a higher interest rate because maybe they have other people they could lend it to, or they might have terms.
And they have more money potentially because they've invested before too.
Yeah.
As well.
So, they could have maybe some deeper pockets too, so just know, like, I wouldn't, sometimes I think people are always like, hey, where are the private money lenders at? And and they're like, can you refer me to a private money lender? And I wouldn't necessarily like recommend doing that. I would probably start farming your own people to be your lenders. And then if you find someone that is in the business through a real estate club or something like that, cool. but don't get in the mindset that you have to work with someone who has done it a bunch of times.
And I also want to make it a strong point. I say this, you never know who you're meeting in life. I don't care where you're at. And I look at my dad's whole side of the family because they're farmers by nature, and they don't dress in nice suits. They don't fancy up. I mean, honestly, my dad, sometimes I'm like, Dad, really? Come on, those jeans, buy a new pair of jeans, right? But they're worth money and they have money. And those are some of the biggest lenders that you would in your mind think they don't look like they have money. So I'm just not going to approach them. That's untrue. You never know who has money. So literally treat and talk to everyone the same, because you would be surprised.
And they're looking for answers right now with what's going on in the world, right?
And a lot of these, now I also want to focus on this. A lot of our deals that we're buying are from probate deals where family members have passed away and the kids have inherited property, or baby boomers downsizing. And most of them, when they sell a home to us, guys, they either have zero to very small mortgage left on their property. So some of the houses that we've purchased, not some of them, every single one of them, I ask the person, because I see how much they're getting at closing. Like, we just bought a 4-unit and we bought it for $185,000. The people had like a $32,000 mortgage on it. I'm like, boom, there's a private money lender. They're getting all this money back, right? Like, I have a relationship built. I just bought their property. So you should be presenting that to them, because they obviously love real estate. They already understand real estate. They own this investment. They're just now 80 years old and they don't want to deal with it. So there's a private money lender. So again, this doesn't have to be difficult.
Invite your sellers back to your open houses and show them what you did. And then in today's market, it's probably going to be sold by the time you have an open house, and then say, yeah, it's already sold. And you can say, hey, look, remember, I just so you know, I paid someone 10% on their money to do this.
And I plan on doing that with our 4-unit, because it was cute, but it was old school, right? A lot of older landlords don't see the value in making things super nice. And that's why they don't always get the most qualified tenants. I have the opposite perspective. If you make it nicer, you're going to pull different people in, and we do some short-term rentals. So I told Noah, the gentleman, because of COVID, we weren't in the same room at closing, but I actually tucked my head in just to say thank you and how excited we were to buy it. And his eyes perked up because he saw that I was a little younger. I said, this is what my husband and I do. He was there with his wife. I said, we're so excited about buying this property. We think it's so cute. It's going to look amazing. And I told Noah, when we finish up the rehabs, I'm going to take pictures and send them to him. And I'd love for him to come back and see them, because I feel very confident he could be a lender.
Yeah, we better hurry up with that rehab though, because he's,
Yeah, I know, right now. He was like 82. That's young now, though. Yeah. He's playing better health than me at 43 with toddlers.
So show them the way, right? Show them the way. It's like, so you practice your initial elevator pitch. We've got the documents. You can talk about the terms, but the whole idea here is just to guys set up a meeting where, and then here's a great way to build credibility with your meeting. Like, everything that, what you're going to do to the property. I would document that. So I would have like something that you can give them, right? So here's a little bit info about our company with your picture next to it. Here's our logo if you have a company. Here's our buying criteria, like of what we do in the houses and the neighborhoods that we focus on, right? So like, I would put something together and then print it, bind it, make it look nice, right? And so that when you meet with them, they have something, and it's not like you're just borrowing money. Like, this is, you're a professional, and you're going to display that professionalism and give them confidence. And it maybe even on that paper or that packet or whatever you give them, you list the closing attorney's information. You list the contractor that you've hired, right? And you do a little bio about them to show like who you're surrounding yourself with. So even if you're new, my contractor's been in business 30 years. My closing attorney's been in business 20 years. My real estate agent, she's the best in all of Columbia or whatever.
Right. Because we get that all the time, well, I'm brand new to this. Why would someone want to give me money? Well, if you think like that, they're not going to give you money. Like, that's not going to happen. Yeah. I mean, we've all been brand new to something. I mean, I can remember, in getting hired for my first job and having to interview, and how nerve wracking. I've never worked for someone. I'm only out of high school. I worked a basic job, and I'm out of college. How do and it's the same way, guys. We've all started new, fresh from somewhere, and that's okay. It's just, what do you have behind you presenting the credibility?
Yeah. Just don't be alone, right? So, hey, I understand I'm new, but I just don't see how I could go wrong with the team that I've built and the people that I'm working with and the deal that I got, right? Because at the end of the day, this is an essence of asset-based lending, where the person is lending knowing that the asset is going to be worth way more than what they're lending. right? Which is good. So goal right now, we've covered so much. Do you guys have any questions? Any questions? Let me get out of here. Let me get out of this.
And I know some of you have your camera off because you're probably juggling kids, eating a meal and everything else. It's cool. You can even turn your camera off if you're eating.
We get it.
That's our daily life. So, but you can type them in the chat box too. And Jermaine, I love this is great. Good. I hope you got a lot of valuable information out of this because I know you're just starting to invest, which is super cool. And that's it. You know, some of this stuff is going to be advanced for some of you, and some of this will be, you know, I mean, I know you'll pick up something from here because it's funny, even experienced investors when we're coaching and I do it, I always pick up something about anything. It's like, oh my gosh, I never thought about that. That was so cool. And if I just use that one thing, that puts me ahead.
Yeah. Well, that one thing we learned this week about always wanting if you're the lender, always ask for monthly payments so that if for some reason you need to get on top of getting your money back or something sounds fishy and they miss a payment, then you can do that.
And I think it's great too, like as a lender for the first couple deals, you know, asking even like, so this is valuable because I know someone on the call had Deborah had some questions about lending before. And what's really important too, I think, is when someone's starting off and you're lending to them for the first time, I think it's okay to ask for monthly payments. I think it's actually good because you know that person, but you don't know them and you don't know their best business practices. And I think for me, you know, when we were starting out, I hated making a monthly payment, right? Because yes, I don't want to, but at the same time, it helped me create a really good, solid system of working with my contractor, getting things done, having a good payment history, and really budgeting and balancing everything out. And I think that was really important. Even like the rehab money. So like now when we work with a private money lender, they escrow, they send wire all the money to the closing attorney, and at closing, we are paid out all of the repair costs. So like if it's a $30,000 rehab, we immediately get all $30,000, right? Which is great because we've done this over and over many times. If you don't feel comfortable doing that the first time you're lending to someone, you can escrow that money with the closing attorney. You can say, hey, listen, I would prefer that borrower didn't get all the money at once. I would like to give them increments of 10,000. And then once they've done $10,000 worth of work, even though you're a private money lender, you could work that as a hard money lender if you felt, you know, more comfortable if it was the first time. Do that, you know, do things that make you feel comfortable if you're the lender, because that is your money. And I personally, if someone asked me to do something, I wouldn't have a problem with it because I know that I'm doing everything honest and ethically. So,
yeah, I think some good advice would be to, on both ends, whether you're thinking of lending or borrowing, is talking with a private money lender, or excuse me, a hard money lender, and finding out like what their system is. And so if you're thinking about lending, understand, okay, what are those people, what are they looking at? What do they want to see? And then, you know, not being, you know, too rigid with it, but just having an understanding of their thought process. And then also looking at, if you're borrowing, going to a hard money lender and saying, you know, what do you want from me? Because they're going to make you put it together. And by you taking the time to put that stuff together, it's going to make you a stronger borrower. And that's and help you prepare for when you sit down with someone that's just a private individual, right? So I just think, you know, understanding how their world works will make you a better borrower.
And on the REI USA platform website, I know Stacy has done, and Christy, her assistant, have done a great job of uploading different like resources, different lenders, hard money, you know, maybe go down the list of some of those that are like the preferred lenders and call and contact some of them and ask them about their lending terms. And great news, Deborah, I just saw your message. So that's awesome.
Oh yeah, cool. That's good job.
So we love, we love helping people. Like, guys, this has been awesome. If you have any questions, you know, of course, type in the chat box or just pop up on here on the screen. If not, that's cool too. You know where to reach us. No, I gave that to you, but I think our goal every month is just to teach you that yes, there are a lot of pieces to this business, and this business can be difficult at times, but it's more difficult when you just don't know what you're doing, when you have a good path to follow. And that's what I love about this platform that's been put together, because there's so much information and knowledge to learn. And the problem is there's so much information out there. Like we can Google anything, right? Like we can watch a YouTube video, we can do this, but everything always leaves out like one thing. And it's like, okay, but what do I do from there? Like, hey, this sounds great. Yeah, private money lending. but hold on, like, how do I go about doing that? So what happens is it almost either confuses you or it stops you from ever doing anything. So that's why we love teaching here to educate you and really show you, like, listen, here's all the information. Like, we want to help you. We want you to be successful. So any questions you have, please feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah, if you're in the Columbia area too, we do a local meetup. It's called the Re-Up, and you can find it on Eventbrite. And it's a free event. We just get together and talk about a lot of the same stuff we're talking about here, but in person, which
Yep.
is cool.
And if you have any questions about the South Carolina market, just not in Columbia, we have contacts all across the state. So if you're interested in the market, or, you need a connection to maybe another investor in a different area, or you have a deal you're looking to wholesale or do, let us know, because we definitely probably know somebody we can connect you to in the market, attorneys, everything. Cool.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, if you don't have any questions, we love having you on. So we hope to see you back. It's the third Thursday
of every month.
of every month. So we'll be back next month to help you out. Okay. Have a great month.
Oh, you got it.
Oh, no
All good.
worries. Thanks for joining, everyone. Have an awesome evening.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye.